Hello, here we are today starting with the most basic fundamental truth of sports performance. Now, this lecture, for all those who are listening, the most important part about this lecture is the fact that we are going to clear some myths, some misconceptions, and probably get some of the fundamentals correct so that we know exactly what we do as strength and conditioning specialists or as strength and conditioning coaches in the whole team of the sports science staff. So a lot of young people, a lot of young sports strength and conditioning coaches who get in, they are sometimes not too sure where they fit in. How important is their role in the whole scheme of things? When you're working with a top athlete or whether you're working with maybe some school kids, what is your role? Where do you fit in? Are you the most important person? Are you the least important person? Or are you equal to everybody in there? The psychologist, the technical coach, to the athlete. Are you the same or are you more or less? So it's always good for a person to know where they fit in so then they can contribute the most. So to explain this, I'm going to use a small chart and you'll probably get an idea of exactly what is the role of a strength and conditioning specialist or where strength and conditioning fits in. Okay, so this is the sports performance pyramid, that we're going to talk about. Think of this pyramid as sort of like a mountain, You want to climb this mountain, the trophy is on top, the winning is on top. Now, how do you get there, Is there a process? Is there a way? What is the way when people win matches, win tournaments, athletes sort of do their best? What is it that they do? So this sort of small pyramid will give you a good idea about exactly what is needed. So this is the pyramid, the mountain. You want to reach the top, you want to win. What's the most basic thing that you need for this? This is something that we need to understand as strength and conditioning coaches. All right. So physical capacity. This, what is right here at the bottom, this becomes the basis of a lot of physical sports. And when I say physical sports, I mean sports where there's movement, sports such as football, badminton, American soccer, basketball, various sports, swimming, tennis, where there's movement, where people sort of, exert. Physical capacity becomes the base of an athlete. If you are physically strong, you are able to then use the next quality that you would want. What is the next quality that you want once you're physically strong? Let's say there's an athlete who's very physically strong, good muscle strength, good stamina, good flexibility, everything's good. But what is it that separates an average gym goer who also is fit from an athlete? And that's where we come to the second point. Technical capacity. Now this is something we have to understand, especially as strength and conditioning specialists, that a sports person who's involved in sport, without technical capacity, you're not really a sports person. Because sport is about technique. Sport is about performing a skill. It could be with a bat, where someone like a top player is able to hit a stroke with the best sort of angle, with the best touch, the best finesse. A badminton player might be able to hit a smash, move to the net and finish it with a tap. It could be a tennis player who is able to serve well. So these are techniques that they have, skills that they have, which, like I said, the average maybe gym goer, a person who could be a good, very strong in the gym, doing bench presses, running on the treadmill, stretching, maybe even having a very good body, but maybe they don't have this skill. And really speaking, technique is what makes champions. That's what makes them different to the average person. They are just good in a skill which belongs to their sport. So once we understand this, that physical is the base, but it is never going to be more important than the technical skill. It is rather to help the technical skill. So as a strength and conditioning specialist or strength and conditioning, what it does is it assists, it helps the technical skills to get better. We'll get a bit more into this later, but this is very important to understand that the gymming, the running, the various tests you do can never be more important than the technical skill. And I know this would sound probably a bit harsh. Sometimes people think that, hey, but I've done my sports science degree and I'm so and so, I've qualified from here. Are you telling me that I'm not as important? You are very important. You form the basis of the whole pyramid. But you cannot say that you are more important than the person who serves a tennis serve. The skill of serving, the skill of playing a shot in cricket, the skill of maybe kicking a ball is what matters. The squats, the deadlifts, the drills of all the runs and all the stretches, all the advanced techniques you use are to help this. If it is not helping this, the rest becomes just physical fitness, and we'll again get into this a bit later. Okay, but I hope this is very clear. We know where we're heading, right? So physical capacity is the base on which technical capacity is resting, and the whole base is formed so that technical capacity can get better. It is not something where physical capacity can be independent. So what I mean by physical capacity is exercising, what we do, strength and conditioning coaches, all the exercises we do, they have to help the technical capacity, which is the skill. If all the squats in the world, all the deadlifts in the world, and all the running and all the various drills you do, if they're not helping your particular athlete in their particular sport, we are in a way wasting their time, sometimes maybe even putting them at risk. So you don't want a person who's so fit in the gym that they don't have that skill as much, or your training itself is having a negative impact on the technical skill. And this is extremely important for young coaches to understand, young strength and conditioning coaches, young specialists, that if you know where you fit in, you don't have problems. But if you don't know where you fit into the whole scheme of things, a lot of youngsters get very lost. They think that, when I came out of my college and this is the degree that I came out with, and I know I've learned these techniques so scientific, but how come, I'm not the person who decides everything? You might know the science, but the skill supersedes the science. Without skill, the science doesn't really help. So you have to make sure, our role is to make sure that the science helps the skill. That's when you're doing a good job. That's when it's going to help the athlete, and that's when they are going to be able to perform the technical skill better, which I'll again get to in a short while. So what's the top of the pyramid? Is there something that's even more important? Let's look at that. So this is where we're talking about the third aspect, okay, which is called the mental capacity. Now, mental capacity, what is it? Mental capacity is that when you're fit and you've got all the skills in the world, you're very good. But on that given day, you're also calm. You're able to use those skills, you're able to use that fitness. And many a times when we watch matches, we watch our favorite teams play, or maybe our favorite athletes play, we can see that some days they just don't do their best. Some days they didn't play the shots that we know they play. Sometimes even when coaches see their players, they say, that you could have played better. Why does this happen? Because this is a player who has all the fitness, probably has all the skills, for years they've been practicing. Why is it that on certain days they can't? Because mentally they could sometimes have just lost the focus that is needed. At that moment things just go blank, okay, and things just don't go according to plan, and they just don't do what they could have done. So that is where mental capacity comes in. So on the day of competition, okay, let's say we train for 2 months for a particular competition. On that particular day, the three things that are required is the base, physical, it is non-negotiable; technical capacity, non-negotiable; mental capacity, non-negotiable. So is one more important than the other? No, they're all important. They all are equal. It is just that if you are physically not fit, if I may use the word fit, or physically not capable, you are not going to be able to use your technical skills. So on competition day, let's say there's a competition going on, or there's a race going on, you are there to take part, your athlete is there to take part. What is it that they need? Do they need one aspect more than the other? Is it mental capacity that they need the most? And if it's mentally they are strong, then they can do it all? Absolutely not. Everything's important. It is important to understand that the physical, the technical and the mental work together on a good day for athletes. When all things flow into pattern, then definitely you're going to do your best. And one might say then, okay, why is physical at the bottom? Why is it at the base? Because if that breaks, it affects the rest. So I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a player who's got an injury, okay, or as they get older, they retire. Why is it that players retire? If you think about it, there are so many players who are exceptional, when they play young. And as they get to a certain age, maybe late 30s, 40s, sort of that's the time, most players get retired from majority sport. Why is it? Because their physical capacity goes off. And when that base goes off, even though they are technically still good, they've practiced for years, and sometimes mentally they might be even more wiser because years of experience, years of living, years of dealing with people, they would be wiser, but still they quit. It's because the physical capacity has gone down. So it's important to understand that this forms the base. We play a very important role, okay? And if the physical goes, generally everything else it affects, because if a physically injured athlete who's probably sore from maybe overloading, or sometimes just who's got a muscle strain, that athlete is less likely to do possibly good training, technical training, because he cannot move well on the court or in the swimming pool or maybe on a track. So it's important to keep them safe and strong physically so that they are able to use their technical skills. When these two are there, they feel generally good, and then they are able to feel mentally calm, and that's where most of their good performances come. Okay, so it's important to know where we fit in, but we can never think that we are more important than the technical, and neither can the sports psychologist ever think that just being mentally sort of calm is all that's needed, because you need a skill. So to give an example of this, simple, which will make sense I think in this whole thing, think of physical capacity like a car. Okay, you're doing car racing, all right? Your athlete is somebody who's racing cars. So what do you need for that? You need a good driver, you need a good car. The physical capacity is like the tangible car. It's a very powerful car. We build that powerful car, do a lot of modifications, make sure it's got the best exhaust, it's got the best air filter, best fuel. So we keep the car ready. Now physically, if there's a car with you, it can't move by itself. It needs a driver, right? So the driver is the mind. Okay, the driver is the person who's got that sort of control to make sure that the car moves. But what does the driver need? Can any driver get into any car and drive? Obviously not. He needs skills, driving skills. So the car is the physical, the skills is the technical, and the driver is the mental part. So when all these are together, it will work well. But if there's no car and you have the best driver in the world, he can't take part in the race. Okay, and a driver who's good, who's got the skills and who's got the car, but who's scared on that given day, cannot again perform at his best. So this is important to understand. It probably gives you a bit of a correlation to something which is more sort of tangible. Okay, so think of it like that. We're the ones who keep the athlete's body strong so that that car can perform, go fast, perform well, race well. So now we come to the physical capacity specifically. Okay, we know where we fit in, but what is it that we do? So as you go through the points, you can just see, that the first point that I mentioned there is to perform a technical skill with less fatigue and greater energy. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's take an example of somebody who's a bowler in cricket, a fast bowler. So he knows how to bowl. He knows that that's the way to drop the ball. There's a certain angle that it goes in. So what does the physical capacity do is that with good training and with good nutrition, okay, and with good recovery, this person is now able to slowly bowl a greater number of times. Same applies to somebody who's maybe a tennis player or a badminton player. They are able to hit those smashes in badminton, and a tennis player is able to serve a greater number of times. Previously, maybe if they were serving, doing maybe 50 serves, okay, in practice, now they're able to do 70, and they're able to do 70 over time with less fatigue. They tire less. So that's the first sort of plus point that we bring as strength and conditioning coaches. Okay, the physical capacity does this. One, it will allow you to do something a greater number of times technically. Then the second is, we are able to do it a greater number of times, and then the next one is with more power. So the same tennis serve which was going at a X amount of speed, or the badminton smash at an X amount of speed, now there's no more power added to it. So there's a lot more speed that comes in. Okay, so there's a person now who's able to serve more number of times, plus also send the ball at a faster speed. Isn't that the ideal that a coach would need? And that's exactly what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to help the tennis or the badminton or the cricket or swimming or anything by just adding. We are the ones, like I gave the example of the car, we are the ones who will add the BHP, the horsepower, to the car's engine. That is our job. We are not there to teach the person to drive. Our role is to make sure that the whole body is stronger than before to be able to play better of whatever sport they are in. Okay. So the second point is this. What's the third one? To perform a technical skill a greater number of times. So like I said earlier, one is the fact that you want to be less tired, the player is less tired, they're able to send it with more power, and they can do it more number of times. I mean, what more can one want? That's exactly where we fit in. If we know this, we are able to actually contribute to the whole process. Okay. The last one in this, which is again important, very important, is a lot of minor, okay, and I very clearly state we are talking about minor and maybe overload injuries which happen, which are more due to overuse. Okay, somebody who maybe does a lot of running, or somebody who does certain shoulder movements. So we are able to reduce the number. No training can completely guarantee and say that I will prevent an acute injury. Obviously we can't. Somebody has a fall or somebody lands wrong on the ground, they will obviously have certain injuries that they undergo. But overuse injuries, definitely good strength and conditioning programs can help. They can help reduce, and they can keep the person as safe as physically possible. Okay, but it is again not 100%. So this also we have to be clear. Sometimes people use the term prevention of injuries. Okay, you have to be very clear what injuries. Okay, so that part is a different topic, but we're not talking about stopping injuries completely, but we try to reduce the risk and the load that comes in from overuse injuries. Okay, so who are the people who are in this physical now? One is us, who are the strength and conditioning coaches, specialists, the physiotherapist, who will help with maybe recovery, who will help with performing certain stretches maybe at the end, and there's a separate chapter I'm going to do about physiotherapists and strength and conditioning coaches and their roles. But yeah, we're all dealing with the physical aspect: the physiotherapist, the strength and conditioning coach, the masseur, and even the nutritionist. Nutritionists play a huge role because again they help in energy. The nutritionist, you could say, is like when we talk about a car, the nutritionist is the one who ends up giving the fuel to make sure that the best fuel is in the car, and we know how to make sure that the engine power is enhanced. So all these, though, we work with the physical aspect, the physical realm. This is extremely important to understand. If we are clear about this, you can work well with technical coaches. Okay, so as this course goes forward, you'll learn a lot about what to do in a setting and what to do in that sports system. So if you know your role, you are able to contribute the best. If you don't know, then you're just trying to contribute things which maybe are not required. Now coming to the technical capacity, I mentioned that is what lies on top of your physical. So what is technical capacity? In a simple statement, or in a simple line, if I have to explain, and I've mentioned this, technical skills make champions. A champion is a champion because they can play good cricket, good football, good tennis, good badminton, wrestling, whatever. That is what a technical skill is. Medals are not given in the gym, they are given on the court, on the ground, for that particular technical skill. So we have to understand this. Sometimes as strength coaches or specialists, we can sometimes forget. Who teaches them this? Us? Or is it the nutritionist? Or is it the psychologist? No, it is the technical coach. So when you work in a system, you will be working with a lot of technical coaches who teach their skills. We have to know that we are there to help them. And if you can do that, you will have the best relationship with a technical coach. But if you think that what you do in the gym is more important, okay, and especially in a sport which requires high amount of skillful movements, you will just have a problem there. So it's important to understand that technical coaches try to enhance the technical capacity, and what they do is they aim to make the technical skills more automatic for the player. So here, if you see this point, aim to make the technical skills automatic for the player. So what does this mean? The player who's maybe playing a badminton rally and they're doing a lot of sort of attacking which they are doing. So that attacking, the technical coach will try to teach the player so that it becomes very natural, it comes out naturally. Or a boxer whose maybe jab is not very good, so the technical coach will try to make sure that the boxer is able to do those jabs much more naturally without thinking. Even if we practice certain things, I might be practicing martial arts, I've been doing martial arts for more than 30 years. If I'm going to work with a boxer, am I going to teach him how to do a jab? Absolutely not. Even though I know what I do, I'm pretty decent at my sort of boxing, my kicking, but I don't interfere there if I work with a boxer. And this is something where if you can do this, this is where a lot of trouble will be saved. Okay, so a technical coach teaches this, and you have to really be clear what is their role, what is your role. Don't jump into the technical coach's role. It will not help, it's not required, you are not hired for that. Okay, so the technical coach is the one who teaches the skill which wins medals, and that is the reason why the rest of us, whether it's your psychologist, whether it's the strength and conditioning coach, physiotherapist, we are called support staff. Extremely important to understand this. A lot of times we forget, all right? So make sure that you know what's your role. Your role is to support. Your role is not to teach the main skill. Okay, we are important, but we are never more important than the technical skill. If you can know this, things will flow well, right? So make sure of these notes that technical skills make champions. We are here to enhance those skills for them, but we are not here to teach those skills to them, and not even sometimes make an opinion after a match, maybe after a race. It is very tempting for us sometimes, as we work with them for a long time, to give an opinion, to say that I think towards the end you could have played these shots, okay, in a badminton match or in a tennis match or anything in cricket. It is so tempting because when we watch them play over time, we think we know this player. Never forget your role. Okay, be very clear what you've been sort of assigned to. That will keep you the best. Don't get into the technical coach's realm. It is not your expertise. You are not an expert on that. If you can realize this, you'll have a good career ahead. Okay, if you get into other people's business, it will just make a mess. So this is important for a lot of young athletes. Okay, I mean a lot of young professionals, okay, who get into the field. You need to know what you have to contribute. If you don't know, it becomes a mess for a lot of them. Now the top of the pyramid that I showed you, okay, was mental capacity. So what is mental capacity for? Obviously it is for improved focus, improved awareness, improved confidence on the day of competition, and in general even during practice. What is it that they have to do? They have to basically learn to deal with success, to win, and also when they lose, how to deal with it. So that becomes the mental part, which makes sure everything comes together on that given day. Whose role is that? Is it your role as a strength and conditioning specialist? Answer is no. You can be positive, okay? You definitely, any person who's working around an athlete, the first rule is you have to be positive. Because if you're not positive, everything just goes out, then everything can become questionable. So you have to be positive, but you have to understand this role is generally done by a sports psychologist or some players who are maybe very experienced, who sort of know how to handle their own problems over a period of time. They can. But if you are not hired for that, you have to know where to get in. Okay, but a trained psychologist will be trained and licensed to work with these athletes and know exactly what works. It's just like how sometimes a technical coach might think that he or she knows what to do in the gym, but obviously we are trained and qualified to do that. So the same way we might think that we can do some stuff which is about psychology, but best to stay away from something that is not your realm. Okay, so mental capacity, this is the these are the main points that are done to improve focus, awareness and confidence, learning to deal with losses and successes. Of course everybody is ready to win, but a lot of people don't know what to do when they lose. That's where a trained psychologist will come in. That's where their sort of confidence, the player's confidence, along with a trained professional, it helps. So I hope now we are clear where we fit in into this whole pyramid, and I'll take you back to that pyramid just so that you know, and as a reminder where exactly our role comes in. So here we are again. You can see the mountain. We want to go up to that trophy to win. What's at the base? Physical capacity. What's next that comes in? Technical capacity, the skills. What comes next? The mental capacity. Okay. So when all these three work together, you've got things in a sequence. You might have seen that in this last sort of slide, I've also got a picture of this person who's balancing on these three chairs. Okay. The role, or on the day of competition, it's almost this fine balancing that happens. Top players, top athletes have this fine balance between physical, technical and mental, and then they are just able to balance it and get it done on that day. And that is the reason why also not everybody can win all the time. Okay, sometimes there are losses, but it's just that things happen to fall into place on that particular day. What is it that we do as strength coaches? We just make sure that the chair which is yours, you make sure it's there in that sequence, and you make sure that it works in alignment with the others, but make sure your chair is there. Okay, your chair or that base what I spoke about, or like the example I gave of a car, you have to make sure that the car is ready. If you've got the car ready and powerful, you've done your job. That day, particular day, maybe the athlete is not able to use their body the best, but if their body is ready, you've actually done your job before the competition. And I'll be speaking on a separate lecture about this, when and how to know when you've done your job. Okay, when you know that you've done your part and if you've sort of contributed to the best that you had to. If that is clear, everything falls into place, and you also know whether you are doing justice to your job. But if you don't know and are not clear, then sort of again people tend to worry about my player won, so I've done well. When they lose, am I not doing something right? So there'll be a separate lecture on this, on to know how to cope with winning and losing for you as a strength and conditioning coach as well. But I hope this is clear now what we've spoken. This, if you can understand, this forms the basis. This will apply to any position, any place you go in. The physical, the technical, along with the tactical as well, and the mental. These are three different things which come together, and then on a given day, it all works nice and smooth and it happens. But you have to be very clear what is it. Just with somebody winning doesn't mean you've done a great job, or somebody else. We have to be able to sometimes measure what you've done. But you should know what you're doing to be able to measure it or to know your contribution. So hope this lecture helps, and this lecture tries to clear the whole confusion that youngsters go through when they get into the sports science field or strength and conditioning. So this whole pyramid takes a lot of that confusion out. So go through this lecture again if necessary, but once you do, you will be able to understand where you fit in, what to do and what not to do as well. Thank you.